Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. The guards guarding Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge saw young Master Qi and Sun Sovereign. Even though they were astonished at how strong Sun Sovereign was, they didn't question him as there were numerous gods in eternal peace and they frequently came to Supreme Emperor Heaven to learn. The gods of Supreme Emperor Heaven had abilities much more powerful than the gods of eternal peace, they were just lacking in algebra and divine arts. A few of them had taken the chance of the peaceful moment to run to eternal peace to learn algebra and divine arts. This senior, please register your name. A guard held a brush while walking forward. He bowed upon coming close to them. Sun Sovereign picked up the brush and wrote down his name on the register. He then looked at young Master Qi with inquiry. "Write it down," young Master Qi said indifferently. Sun Sovereign acknowledged and wrote down the youth's name on the register before giving back the brush and leaving. Strange, this god seemed to be listening to the orders of that young master. The youth doesn't seem to have strong abilities, so how did he making a god follow him? Astonished, the guard lowered his head to take a look. He saw young Master Qi Jiui written on the register. Everyone was bewildered. What exactly is the background of this Qi Jiui? Beside the sea of fire in without embroiling city's abyss, the dragon Qilin and the green bull stared at each other while using all the time they had to cultivate. The two huge beasts knew that they were each other's nemesis. The green bull was afraid of the dragon Qilin's Qilin bead, and the dragon Qilin knew the green bull's battle experience and endurance was much better than his, so he cultivated diligently. The green bull knew that the damned fatty dragon Qilin was a schemer and wanted to get rid of him since a long time ago. When he saw the dragon Qilin cultivating diligently and spitting out a dragon bead that was growing bigger and bigger, he felt a growing danger, so he also worked much harder. The contest between the two huge beasts made Qin Mu very happy. Suddenly, a rumble of thunder came from his body as he broke through his six-direction wall of the divine treasures of the Devil Path. This made his vital Qi improve by quite a bit. He executed Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique, which was separated into God and Devil parts. The God vitality and the Devil vitality flowed along the circulation paths that were corresponding to each other. However, because the 7 stars divine treasure of the Devil path wasn't yet open, they didn't match completely when he operated his technique. If they did, it would be much easier for him to execute Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique. Now, his Devil vitality had to stop at 6 directions divine treasure and wait for the God vitality to circulate through 7 stars divine treasure before continuing to complete a cycle of circulation. Because of that, there was some loss of time. But that wasn't all. Not only was it easy to get distracted, his advancement could also be affected since he couldn't focus his energy on breaking into Celestial Being Realm. After opening the 7 stars divine treasure of the Devil Path, I'll still need to establish access between 7 stars and 6 directions. Only then would my cultivation stabilize and have the chance to break into Celestial Being Realm. Vital Qi continuously circulated in his body and his third eye, which had been sealed by Mute. Granny Sai had said that it was for his own good. Even though the eye was sealed, Qin Mu didn't feel any abnormalities. His vital Qi could still enter it and circulate according to the path, raising the eye's strength. Mute had used a golden willow leaf, which he required a lot of time to forge, to seal his third eye. Blind, Granny Sai, Butcher, Deaf, and the rest had helped on the side, forging all the necessary parts with great effort. Blind had personally designed a sealing formation, and everyone had had to imprint their magic power on the tiny golden willow leaf for it to be finished. Granny Sai personally pasted the golden willow leaf on the heart of Qin Mu's brows. The elders of disabled elderly village instructed and warned him to never take the golden willow leaf down unless he was in extreme danger. Numerous exquisite and detailed vein lines appeared on the golden willow leaf, making it look very pretty. Hu Linga saw it and was very envious. She made noises about wanting to have a willow leaf too. Blind, Deaf, and the rest pampered her, so they talked Mute into forging another golden willow leaf, but it was without a seal this time. Instead, Blind and Deaf imprinted divine eyes and a world inside the painting onto it. The incomparably complicated formation was then imprinted on the willow leaf. Dev pasted it on Hu Linga's forehead, and she was unexplainably excited. She would activate it from time to time, and a beam of light would shoot out from the heart of her brows, slicing open mountain rocks and creating huge pits on the ground. Hu Linga had learned spells from Fox Immortal of the Five Immortals, so her cultivation wasn't weak. Fox Immortal was a Dao friend of the now-deceased village chief, and she was in charge of the demon race of Eternal Peace Empire. Qin Mu had invited her a few times to give lessons for scholars of Heavenly Saint cult, so their relationship was very good. Granny Sai, Butcher, and the rest had tidied up the technique suitable for their cultivation. They discussed the vital qi circulation path inside the human body and constructed a vital qi human body that had gathered the strong points of everyone. However, their main areas of cultivation were different, so everyone made some adjustment on the foundation to suit themselves more. Qin Mu asked Granny Sai for vital qi circulation diagram of the human body they had constructed and put it away with utmost care. Mua, you already have a better technique, so why do you still want to keep our technique? Granny Sai was rather puzzled. Granny, you guys have done a great deed. This vital qi circulation diagram of the human body that you guys constructed could be said to be a kind of technique that can train all aspects of the corporeal body and primordial spirit, Qin Mu said righteously. Other people will find it hard to learn my technique. If one isn't the overlord body, they wouldn't be able to learn it, so it's hard to pass down. I feel that this technique, which has gathered the strong points of everyone in disabled elderly village, is very simple to cultivate, so we can share it with other cultivators. I want this technique to be passed down for generations, so maybe in the future, all of the gods in eternal peace will be your disciples and successors. Granny Sai was stunned. She said with a smile, "We didn't think that much." Qin Mu was unexplainably agitated in his heart. When he first constructed the vital qi circulation path of the human body, he didn't think of it much. In his state of comprehension, he had only considered constructing a set of techniques that were most suitable for him, so he had entered the realm of path with his technique. Later, he had passed it to Granny Sai, Mute, Butcher, and the rest, and they hadn't thought much of it either. They had only wanted to gather everyone's strong points to make up for what they were lacking so they could have the aptitude of a true god. Yet such an unintentional action had created a technique that could train all aspects of the corporeal body and all aspects of the primordial spirit. This was Eternal Peace's first technique on the true god level that could be passed down and spread far and wide. This achievement and virtue could be said to be immeasurable. Granny Sai and the rest might not realize it, but Qin Mu did. Once this technique was spread, most of the gods in the future within Eternal Peace Empire would be the disciples of Granny Sai, Butcher, and the rest. It could be said that they would have students all over the world. Qin Mu looked around and saw that without embroiling city had indeed suffered from a disaster which had turned it into a huge abyss of fire. What are we supposed to say to God Sang Yi? He asked us to take care of the sentry post for a few days' time before he would return. Now, however, without embroiling city is gone, much less the sentry post. Should we rebuild it? Blind's body suddenly trembled slightly, and his closed eyes looked toward the west as he said solemnly, "The devils are currently advancing their army over here. The vanguard is already not far from this place." Qin Mu hurriedly looked to the west where he could see mountains and devil chi all around. His gaze could only cover a few hundred miles. He couldn't see any devil army. Granny Sai and the rest took a look, and they also could only see devil chi moving about. They couldn't see what Blind had mentioned. The vanguard of the devil race is still 5,000 miles away from here. Blind opened his eyes and said solemnly, "Your divine eyes still haven't reached perfection, so your divine mind eyes have yet to be cultivated and you can't see that far." Qin Mu knew that Blind's divine mind eyes were extremely powerful, so they could see what divine eyes couldn't, but he'd never thought that he could actually see things that were 5,000 miles away. The vanguard consists of elites, countless devil monsters. Their speed is fast and their abilities are powerful. Blind said quickly upon closing his eyes again. There are also numerous devil gods supervising the army. They are very terrifying and have noticed me watching them. They are currently investigating the source of the disturbance. Quickly, inform Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor or we won't have time to react. I will use secrets of 3 primordial spirit assembly to inform Saint Xiong and the rest in Li City. Qin Mu immediately said. His primordial spirit projected from his body as he left to contact Sai Yunxiang, Ling Yuxiu, and the rest. 5,000 miles away, numerous incomparably tall devil ancestors stretched their bodies, and beams of surging flames burst from their eyes as they searched for the source of the gaze they'd sensed. Blind had used the divine arts of divine mind eyes to look at them, and they had sensed an enemy spying on them with their acute perception. However, they couldn't find this spy, so the devil gods roared in anger. They hurried the Yudu monsters to flood across the mountains, heading east. Blind continued to spy while speaking solemnly. The number of devil gods isn't small, and their abilities are all very powerful. We have no place to base here, so we have to leave as fast as possible. Their speed is fast. Apothecary shook his head. But the divine arts practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven and Eternal Peace are all training in the surroundings. We may be able to leave, but they can't. We can leave the divine arts practitioners of Supreme Emperor Heaven to take care of themselves, but most of the divine arts practitioner of Eternal Peace are scholars of the college and the academies. If they all die here, we will probably lose half of the elites of the younger generation. Chancellor Ba Shan frowned. If we allow the devil army to rush over, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor won't have time to organize the army and will be caught off guard. We need to help him and stall for some time. Qin Mu called back his primordial spirit and said solemnly, "We have a base. It's none other than this abyss of without embroiling city." Butcher laughed. "That's right, it's right here. We'll block those devil brats." "Teacher, how would we do that?" Chancellor Ba Shan asked. Everyone suddenly turned their heads to look at Death. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor once said that there was a person who could rival an army of 1,000,000. He called him Art Saint and constructed Pavilion of Art Saint to worship that person. Butcher said solemnly. His gaze flickered and landed on Death. This person is unrivaled in both calligraphy and painting, and he once killed an army of 100,000 people in Eternal Peace. Now, Heavenly Painting Crown Prince, how have your abilities improved since back then? Death took out his brush and gave it a gentle shake. The brush became as large as a beam and he said calmly, "Using a brush to draw mountains and rivers, to create a world and gods, can I do it?" "Can." Granny Sai and the rest shouted in unison. Death grabbed toward the abyss of without embroiling city, and his magic power poured out. A pillar of magma rushed into the sky. Death used the magma as ink and the land as paper, twisting and turning his brush to paint on the ground. He used the tail of a fire wolf that had cultivated to near the god realm as the hair of the drawing brush and a god's bone he had found in a ruin in Great Ruins as the handle. Qin Mu had frequently played with it when he was young and always got smacked on the hand by Death when he found out. Firewolf's tail could not be damaged even when bathed in fire, and the god's bone allowed him to release his power as he liked. He could write to his heart's content. Death was always cultured and refined, and sometimes even slightly inflexible. He had an extraordinary bearing when he was rich and seemed like a prince roaming the land for pleasures. Yet when he was poor and in dire straits, he didn't dare to give a shout but rather squatted in a corner of some street to sell his paintings. Now, as he held onto his brush, the tip of it suddenly became wild, and he also suddenly became wild. He had the unique spirit of a scholar that was full of vim, a unique deranged and unrestrained side to him. "Death, let me assist you." Heroism couldn't help rising inside a Butcher when he saw the tip of that brush painting a blazing picture in the fire. With a wave of his knife, he leveled the land so that Death could paint to his heart's content. With his vital chi as a pillar, Butcher stirred the magma continuously so it wouldn't solidify into rock. While doing so, he recited, "One's writing brush moves like a dragon or snake, and poetry pours out like a river, achieving character and skill at a prime age." Reporting to the main hall of the Emperor, personally selecting and crowning an ensemble of heroes. Who doesn't want to take the head of the dragon, leading straight to riches and extraordinary meritorious achievements? Contrary to expectations, creating something big is attaining a good reputation. Former memory, place of worship, heavenly painting country then, without embroiling city now. The white-haired and green-clothed Sai, creating a gate for visitors once more. carefully gifting a book of poetry, relying on the immortal wind, blowing to the ocean. Returning to the land, with magnificent words, becoming an old scholar. His passion for poetry erupted in a poem with a different kind of heroic feeling that described Def's life. From heavenly painting crown prince whose skills were outstanding and who had all the books in the world, he'd went to become someone with a ruined country whose people were dead. He fell into dire straits and had to sell paintings to survive. The poem not only made people feel angry, but also held some sorrow of one growing old. Abba! Newt stuck his thumb up and a loud explosion rumbled in his dantian. It sounded like a huge sun blazing, and the furnace behind him erupted like a volcano, pouring fire energy at the magma. Intense fire blazed, and Butcher used his vital chi as a rod to stir the magma. The light of the flame shone on his face and chest, roasting his skin red. Def laughed loudly as though he was drunk and let himself loose. He stumbled around, and his huge brush started to have less and less of a fixed path. It moved like a dragon and a phoenix in flight, like a dragonfly lightly touching the water, like a baby swallow learning to fly, and like an old bull plowing the land. Behind him, his primordial spirit appeared and raised his brush to paint along with him. He poured all of his meticulous care when writing essays and painting mountains and rivers so that it would unfold on a magnificent scale. On the side, Qin Mu, Chancellor Ba Shan, Granny Sai, and the rest were all stunned. They had never thought that the solemn and docile Def would actually have such a wild and unrestrained side to him. With magma as ink and the land as paper, he covered a dozen fields of land in flames in just a short time. The painting shrouded in flames was a dazzling sight to behold. Who would have thought that an old scholar would have such unrestrained heroism? Def drew non-stop, painting the heaven and earth. The sky was white and the land was green. He drew majestic mountains and gods in all kinds of poses, without any two being the same. He drew countless soldiers who looked stern and fierce. They had iron-like muscles and sharp, bright knives and swords. He painted a battlefield and countless athletic bodies that were mid-leap. Qin Mu and the rest were certain that the gods and the fierce army in the painting wanted to jump out. The explosive force of the figures' muscles with which they were swinging their knives, thunder and lightning that was about to burst forth from the cloud layer, the heavy rain that was about to fall, the gales that came blowing, the tornadoes that were wreaking havoc, the mountains that were crumbling, and the boiling sea were extremely real. Def was drawing a vast world and bringing it into reality. Butcher's poem had caused his inspiration to explode, and it poured out of him. The awakened heroism and power of creation in his chest made him sink into a kind of crazy creation. He spoke without restraint, indulging in his own fantasy. After some time, Blind said nervously, "The army of the devils is almost here. They are some 100 miles away from here." Def didn't listen and continued to paint. Blind frowned and said, 80 miles. Qin Mu raised his head to look and saw the pitch-black devil chi there rolling around there like a black fog. Formation markings opened in his eyes, and his heart trembled violently. He saw countless huge devil monsters passing by mountains like a flood. As they ran, they swung all kinds of weird spirit weapons while screaming all the way. Their clothes were tattered and did little to cover their bodies. They didn't look like devils of law for heaven but like people escaping for their lives. They had huge bodies and ran as if they were flying. They were in all kinds of strange shapes as if they had been pieced together from different life forms. Their muscles and organs were all deformed, and they were much scarier than the devils. Some monsters had heads of all kinds of creatures, and their arms were formed from countless arms twisted together. Some of the monsters were only white bones, somehow formed from skeletal frames. There were some who had eyeballs of all sizes on their faces and some who were like centipedes with countless legs. Their weapons were extremely primitive, big bone clubs with flesh on them. Their eyes sparkled with bloodlust and they destroyed everything in their way. These aren't devils but monsters from Yudu. Qin Mu suppressed the trembling of his heart. Rushing toward them were monsters born from wandering souls in Yudu that had absorbed the devil chi and devil nature. Yudu wasn't fully controlled by Earth Count, and Qin Mu had once roamed through it. Even though the time hadn't been long, he'd noticed that Earth Count didn't put much importance on power. What Earth Count cared about the most were rules, Yudu's rules. As long as one didn't break Yudu's rule, he would rarely interfere with the life forms in his territory. The Yudu monsters were the result of Earth Count not caring. Suddenly, incomparably thick beams of devil light brought black-colored flames from the back of the devil army. Pillars of fire swept in front of the devil army, plowing through the ground, melting the mountains, vaporizing the river, and setting ablaze the trees. Qin Mu's gaze passed by the monsters and focused on the source of the devil light. Looking at the army behind, he saw devil gods that were like blazing volcanoes with tall and sturdy bodies. They walked very slowly, but their steps were so large that one required Yudu monster to sprint for quite a long time to cover it. They are devil gods born from evil thoughts and devil nature in Yudu, the old ancestors of the devil race. Qin Mu's mind was in disorder. Suddenly, he saw quite a number of divine arts practitioners escaping in a hurry. They obviously had been training and didn't know that the army of Yudu monsters was coming. When they noticed, it was already too late. Twang! A pillar of black flames plowed past them, and over 10 divine arts practitioners were vaporized immediately, leaving no corpse behind. The other divine arts practitioners dodged in a hurry and avoided the gaze of the devil god by a hair's breadth. But they were flooded by the monster army the next moment. The divine arts practitioners couldn't raise any waves and vanished without a trace. 40 miles. Blind said nervously in a loud voice. Deaf, are you done? 30 miles. Prepare for battle. Just as he finished speaking, Deaf suddenly put away his brush and gave a heavy tap to his painting, bringing it to life. Flames rushed across the huge painting of 100 fields. With his brush as a spear, Deaf gave a heavy flick, and the painting suddenly stood upright. It then gave off an indescribable aura. The painting fused with heaven and earth, vanishing from in front of their faces. Rumble, rumble. Thunder came from the sky, and a bolt of lightning jolted everyone. They raised their heads up and saw dark clouds covering the sky. Flames surged within them, and they were intense beyond imagination. The area which those dark clouds with flowing flames covered grew greater and greater. Suddenly, a gale rose, and an incomparably thick tornado descended from the sky. There was 1, 2, 3. In an instant, countless flame tornadoes, like the dragon of heaven Duke, hung down their tails and tore apart the land. They set everything ablaze while rushing forward furiously. Whoosh! It started pouring, but it wasn't rainwater that was falling down but magma. Chunks of lava fell from the sky like rain droplets and crashed into the Yudu monster army, creating quite a chaos among the ranks. Countless tornadoes rushed in after, and bodies twisted out of shape littered the ground. They tumbled around and were brought into the air before being shredded by the violent winds. Either that or they were burned by the lightning that fell from the sky. Suddenly, gods led thousands of soldiers and cavalries down from the clouds, descending on the army on the ground. The slaughter was a racket deafening to the ears. The gods with their soldiers were an army of 1,000,000, and they rushed down to collide with the Yudu monster army. Countless limbs flew into the air, creating a magnificent sight of carnage. Qin Mu, blind, and the rest looked at it with blank expressions. They didn't even need to join in the battle or risk their lives. The vanguard of the devil race was actually blocked just like that. By one person. Death continued to draw freely. Gods and soldiers continued to jump out from under his brush and rush into the battlefield. Not one of them was afraid of death. The wind, rain, lightning, and thunder struck without restraint, but they never hit the army of the gods. They only landed on the army of the devils. The army of gods belonged to the painting, so the wind, rain, lightning, and thunder in the painting were unrelated to them. Could these Yudu monsters have rushed into Grandpa Death's world in the painting? Qin Mu's heart suddenly moved when he thought of a possibility. Death's painting definitely had to have a boundary, but where did it lie? He looked around, but couldn't see any boundary marking. Death's painting path was to be highly revered. It was so profound that Qin Mu had to put his heart into learning once again. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor said that Grandpa Death could fight against 1,000,000 bold warriors by himself, and his words weren't just empty talk. However, this was Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's evaluation of him after Heavenly Painting Country was wiped out and the country had turned into 18 levels of hell. This video will end here.